You're listening to the Listen Up Show, Startup Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm Mitchell Chadro, your host. Today on show 043, today we're here with David Benzaquen, founder of PlantBased Solutions, a vegan food business strategist, brand management, and marketing agency for plant-based consumer product companies headquartered in New York.
We are a brand management and marketing agency acting as an outsourced chief marketing officer for consumer products that are plant-based.
Listen up, trusted friends. It's your business, it's your family, it's your life. Now let's get started. David started out in the business working for an animal protection nonprofit and as a natural products broker, but in 2012, he founded the PlantBased business. The company offers a range of services for pre-market startups through to huge global brands, including opportunity assessments, business planning and forecasting, new product development, marketing research, brand creation, and a full range of marketing planning and execution. In this show, we'll discuss branding, product development, finance, and operations, push marketing versus pull marketing, broker versus agency models and scaling, revenue, overhead, and expenses, the pros and cons of working with distribution companies and brokers, digital marketing, social marketing, in-store samplings and events, packaging design, and using employees versus outside contractors, and much more. Please sign up to my email list for the latest special offers exclusive for our Listen Up Show Startup Entrepreneur Podcast audience at mitchellchadro.com/sign up. I have been providing business advice, resources, and help to entrepreneurs for over 20 years, and I'm looking forward to helping all of you. Sign up for my email list, again, at mitchellchadro.com/sign up. I will provide you with full transcript for each interview, my ebook, 30 Tools to Start Up, the Startup Checklist, and many other education and training materials, all back at mitchellchadro.com/sign up. Now enjoy the show. Hey, David, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Mitchell. I'm excited to be here.
No, that's great. David, what is the one thing that contributes most to your success?
So it's really about planning where I want to go and then working backwards to figure out how to get there. I have spent my career wanting to influence through the world and make it better for people's health, the environment, and animal protection. And by figuring out how people come to eat, come to experience those behaviors, I've been able to map out what areas of my career to enter, and that's been more exciting for me than anything, has been to figure out where I can make the biggest difference.
So how did you actually come up with this idea? How did you test the idea?
Yeah. So I worked for nearly a decade in the animal protection nonprofit world, and I was very passionate about that work. I felt that the people I was working with were incredibly impactful and compassionate and hardworking. But I realized that everybody who was working in the space was using the same approaches to solving the problem of how our eating behaviors affect the world. And it was also through a method of push marketing rather than pull marketing.
So tell us a little bit about the difference between the two and how that actually helped you, come up with the idea.
Sure. So push marketing involves educating somebody about what they should do, and whether it's buying a product or changing a behavior, and then hoping they'll do it. And unfortunately, education has been proven in consumer psychology research to be one of the least effective ways to change behavior. On the converse, pull marketing is where you make something that is attractive and desirable and put it in front of somebody and allow them to embrace it in an empowering way through their own free will. So by leaving the world where I was educating people about the problems with our food system and moving to a place where I'm making delicious, better options accessible and desirable through marketing and branding, I'm able to attract people to try these things and be excited about it on their own, and they're much more likely to change their behavior.
Our startup round. For all your hosting needs, head on over to mitchellchadro.com/hosting. mitchellchadro.com/hosting for all your web hosting needs. Who do you use to host this website? So now you started the business back in 2012, and so we're almost 5 years into it in June. And so how do you actually make money selling? What is your business model?
Sure. So we work in three ways. We offer hourly consulting for early stage entrepreneurs who aren't quite ready to jump into the plunge of a bigger commitment. We do project-based work where we will have a flat fee for a certain amount of work, like putting together a business plan or packaging design or something of that nature. And then for our larger clients, we will work on a retainer where we are acting as a significant member of their executive team, helping to plan their strategy and manage all of their marketing in the world.
So who are your typical customers or their end users? Who would be your typical person that would approach you for work? Give us an idea in terms of, how that looks.
Sure. So our typical client can range anywhere from a brand new entrepreneur who's looking to start a business with a plant-based food product or a supplement product or something of that nature. Or it could be somebody who has a very established business. We've worked with some of the largest food companies in the world to develop new product areas in the plant-based space. And we can work with them at any stage to help them get ready for market or to be successful in their execution.
Can you give us an example of one successful brand that you've been able to help that may be readily known to the audience?
Sure. So one brand that we've worked with for a long time is called Gardein, and they are a plant-based protein company that makes over 30 different meal options for eating more plant-based protein, from plant-based chicken and beef and pork and fish alternatives in the frozen aisle of your supermarket. And we helped with them with field marketing, with social media marketing, PR and events, and all that kind of thing.
So you don't actually have your own product. You actually help other entrepreneurs get their product to market. Would that be accurate?
That's true for most of our business. We actually do have some companies that we become so involved in that we become significant shareholders and then manage the businesses with them. So one company that I'm thinking of is called Ocean Hugger Foods, and the flagship product is tomato sushi. We met the founder, who is an incredible chef, and he was looking for business partners who could help with the business side of his work, and he wanted to focus on the innovation. So we now partner with him to manage his business, but primarily we are consulting and supporting other entrepreneurs with their products.
So talk to us a little bit about your revenue that you're bringing in. I don't know if you have partners or not. I don't know how many employees you have, but talk to us a little bit about the actual company and the structure and what if you can talk to it, what the revenue base is.
So I'd rather not speak about exact numbers, but we are a small company. We started in 2012, and we have focused on keeping our overhead low in order to bring the most efficient and viable prices to early stage entrepreneurs. The traditional marketing agency model is one where there are so many employees to be able to provide the variety of services that a company will need. And the newer model, which is embraced by many startups, is to keep overhead low by having a small internal staff and find the best resources in the market to be able to contract with on a per-case basis. And that's the model we have. Internally, my colleague Mary McGovern and I run the business. Mary comes from 25 years managing brands for the largest food companies in the world like Kraft, and she and I set all the strategy for our clients. And then if they need social media marketing or digital marketing or in-store samplings or something of that nature, we work with partners who can execute that and manage it.
Yeah. So at any given time, clients are coming to you for a one type project engagement, or do you have other clients, obviously, that are retaining you on an ongoing basis? If you can't give actual revenue numbers, can you talk to us a little bit about what an average customer engagement is like and what that looks like so that the audience has a better understanding about this niche?
Sure. So I can tell you that on an hourly basis, for example, my rate is $250 an hour, if that's helpful. And when we're doing a project or retainer-based work, we are calculating how many hours each person on our team would be devoting to something and discounting it for a bigger commitment. And then that becomes the fee associated with that project or retainer. Our client what it costs to work with us ranges so much based on what a client is doing. We've had clients for whom we've done projects for, a few $1,000s total, and we've had clients for whom we are a retainer for many times that.
So let's talk about the one that provides the highest retainer. How did you actually help them from their distribution strategy get into the various, whether it be retail markets or distribute their product out into the world?
So with those clients for whom we are on retainer in a significant way, it is primarily a situation where, as I mentioned earlier, we are an outsourced chief marketing officer. So rather than they're needing to hire on a very large staff of very senior people that could help them with expertise in advertising and in every kind of marketing and in branding, our team can come in at a significantly lower cost than it would be to bring in all of those people at a senior level and manage all of that. We also can bring in the best resources in the market more efficiently, not just because they're not on our payroll, but because as an agency, we are able to negotiate exclusive rates with other agencies or other freelancers that a client could not do directly. And our markup is very low. So if I am working with John and John wants to hire me for branding or packaging design, I can go get packaging design from one of our great creative designers at a fraction of the cost that they would charge him directly, and he ends up paying less to work with me and them with my project management and strategic integration than he would just to get the design work directly from them.
So how are these customers actually getting to you? How are you getting the word out? I mean, obviously you're doing interviews like this. I've listened to you on other podcasts and I've read some articles, but how do you get the word out about your company and how do the clients actually come to you?
So primarily it's been through word of mouth. I do a lot of networking. It's just my nature to go to a lot of events and conferences and meet everybody I can. I just love doing that. But primarily our clients come through word of mouth. We work very, very hard to ensure that every client leaves happy. And inevitably things, road bumps can happen. And when they do, I am always committed to making sure that they are solved and that nobody leaves unhappy. So that allows us a great reputation where people are constantly referring us business, and we've been very fortunate for that. In fact, as we've grown, I'm having to turn down a lot of work so that we can focus on projects that are not only more lucrative but also more impactful in the world. And so we are trying to focus ourselves on doing more outbound marketing to go after the projects that we're most excited about, but the work just keeps on coming in to keep us busy.
Well, tell me a little bit about that business model because, there are other entrepreneurs out there that want to scale up and, it sounds as if there's too much business, how do you make the determination as to when to either hire more people or to basically limit it? Because, in terms of growth businesses, there's a lot of people that obviously do want to grow considerably and they do want to scale up. So how do you balance that? When do you make the determination as to when to do that or just stick to, where you're at? And that was another reason for me asking about the revenue numbers, because I think that people are curious, not just because of you talking about the numbers itself, but to get an idea in terms of, if they want to either go into this niche or if they're thinking about growing their own businesses, what that actually looks like.
Sure. So I think that, to be honest, the agency world can be a very difficult one to scale. Part of the challenge is that when one is early and is working with a lot of contractors, their margins are very thin. And that means that the more work you can keep in-house, the more money you can make. However, if you're early and you don't have the revenue to be able to hire a big staff internally, you have to use outside contractors. So that balance between finding which people to bring in-house so that you have efficiencies on individual work and which people to keep out so that you don't have to carry a payroll is a very hard balance to strike. And it's something that we've been learning as we've been going. Early on in my business, we had a large internal team that was earlier stage in their careers and focused on a lot of executional marketing. So we did social media in-house. We had a staff of 15 or 20 people who were going into stores and doing samplings or events. And that was a challenge because in order to comply with the law, we had a huge payroll tax and a lot of benefits we had to carry. And we had to deal with managing a large team and all the complications that come with that. But because the work wasn't very highly valued, our margins were extremely thin. As an example, I believe very strongly in honoring the people I work with. So I was paying my team $20 an hour. Most of them were part-timers who were students or cater waiters or actors in their other career. And I was paying them $20 an hour, which was significantly more than they were making elsewhere. But it's because I believe in doing that. And our margins were so small that we were only charging about $25 or $27 an hour, which after payroll taxes and benefit netted out to almost nothing. So
where are you at now in terms of the number of employees that you have internally versus, let's say, contractors on the outside? And then to follow up on that, I know that earlier in your career before this company, you were a broker in this particular area, and you had mentioned about the agency model. So maybe talk to us a little bit about, how you've evolved over these last several years and where you're going into the future. Where do you see the business and the niche?
Yeah, so as we changed our model to focus more on strategic work where we could provide greater value to our clients and create greater margins for ourselves at the same time, we have through attrition allowed the team to dwindle down. We've moved away from doing all the execution work and focus entirely on the strategic work. And now my company internally is Mary and I. And the two of us bring a lot of experience and are able to provide a lot of high-level value to our clients at a significantly reduced payroll cost than it would have been if we had all those people we had previously. And we've been doing that model for about 3 years now. In terms of the evolution of our business. Is she a co-founder, or is she in terms of just your structure? Because we talk a little bit about partnerships and, bringing in people that maybe complement our own strengths to sort of help us in other areas. So what does she bring and how is it structured versus maybe where your strengths lie? Sure. So Mary is an employee and she is involved like a partner, and something that I consider extremely essential to the business. She brings 25 years in experience managing at some of the largest companies. So she started at General Foods, which later became Kraft, and she worked at Ocean Spray and Duracell in extremely senior positions, managing brands worth literally billions of dollars. And when I started this business, I didn't have the traditional background that many people in marketing and branding have. And so in order to cut my teeth and prove that we had the chops to do this work, bringing in somebody with such brilliance and such experience was really helpful to establish ourselves and show people that we were serious about what we do.
So at any given time, how many clients realistically, given the fact that it's just you and her on the inside and you rely on, let's say, outside contractors or other people to help you, realistically, a business that's obviously scaling up versus a solo practitioner, if you will, how many clients can you handle at one given time or in a year's time if they're on retainer?
Sure. So we tend to have between 2 and 3 significant retainer clients at a time, and then 3 or so project-basis works that are, 2-3 month projects, and then a couple one-off shorter things at a time.
And so can you give us an idea in terms of, I know that you had talked just generally about some of the numbers in terms of your hourly rate, but I'm a company, I want to go into this niche, which is obviously, the vegan market, and I'm looking to sort of bring my product to market, get it in supermarkets, etc. What can I expect? What are the expectations in someone like myself coming to you and saying, gee, I'd like for you to help me soup to nuts bring this to market? What would I be expecting to pay someone like yourself in doing that?
So I tell folks, beyond just our costs, I tell folks that if they're looking to launch a food or supplement or cosmetic product into the natural channel, so into health food stores and those kinds of places, if you want to launch really effectively in one region and then scale from there, I tell people that they should expect to spend $250,000 if they want to launch. Like, let's say you wanted to tackle Whole Foods and the natural health food stores in the greater New York metro area for 6 months. And The strategy I recommend to people is that you take that smaller number of stores, you get into them, and you focus entirely on driving sales as aggressively as possible in those areas so you can prove that with enough support, the sales could multiply dramatically as you expand into other stores, and then you go raise capital if you need to.
One of the questions that I had for you personally was, how you actually came up with the idea, which we talked about, and then how you actually tested your own idea in terms of what you were doing. But how do you make that leap of goodwill or good faith to say to a potential customer coming to you, spend X number of dollars, before, fully launching to break into the business? $250,000, how do you help them sort of test the idea first?
So that's the great thing about doing a proof of concept, but we're also doing a lot of research on the marketplace and on the competitive set of products they're in. So if somebody comes to me and says, I want to launch a granola, I might tell them that that's a very challenging business to be in because it's such a saturated market, and I'll probably encourage them to consider other options. If somebody says to me they want to create the first, I had somebody come to me and wanted to create the first probiotic protein powder a long time ago before it was so popular now, I thought that was a brilliant idea. And those kinds of things are so innovative and so in demand, there might be a greater opportunity. So one of the first things we do with the company is analyze the marketplace to understand how big the demand is and how big the opportunity is, and also assess what the competitive environment looks like and what the best ways to reach consumers would be. Maybe they would sell through stores, maybe online, maybe to other businesses. And understanding those opportunities and what lies ahead so that they can plan accordingly is essential to decide if the business is viable and worth pursuing. And so we work with them to make that determination first.
Yeah. The flip side of success is struggles and sometimes failures, and we sort of, have to restart back up again. So can you tell us a little bit about some of your own struggles in starting the business back in 2012 and how that's kind of changed over time?
Absolutely. I'm very transparent about these things because I love working with early stage entrepreneurs to explore and figure out how they can fail quickly and often until they don't anymore. So I started as a broker actually because in order to prove myself in this business, I needed to do something that people were willing to hire me for. And brokering is commission-based sales work. And so because you only get paid on your success, people were more than happy to hire me for that as opposed to hiring me for work that they would have been paying up front without knowing the results. And in the natural food industry, the typical broker gets about 10 to 15% of the products they sell to a store. So as an example, if I'm selling a product that I'm selling for $3 that will retail for $6 roughly, and it's a case of 6 units, and I sell 1 case a week to a store, then it's an $18 case that I'm selling, and I'm making 10 to 15% of that. But it might take me an hour or two to chase down the manager of that store on the phone or in person and get them to reorder. So I might be making $1.80 or $2 or $3 for an hour or two of work. That was a very difficult business model, and the reason that brokers are only successful if they have dozens and dozens of lines with some that are carrying the vast majority of their revenue, the biggest sellers. Because I was early, I worked with very small brands in very small stores. My clients were thrilled because we were getting them into so many stores that nobody else was paying attention to, and because for them the sales were very good. But on my end, it was a disaster. And I could have chosen to pursue expanding that business and continuing to bring on more and more clients, but I decided that for starters, I actually find the broker model really troubling because I don't like the fact that one can't pay attention to the earlier businesses. I'm in this business for innovation and to launch the next thing that will change the world. And I can't do that if I have to focus only on the established brands that are already making me a lot of money.
So is your goal not necessarily to grow exponentially? Because, again, everybody has different goals with their business. I mean, realistically, between you and your employee and the number of people that you could just realistically handle at any given one time, you're not going to be able to sort of scale up and be able to handle hundreds of clients. So that might not be your goal. But maybe somebody's is. And so what do you tell them in terms of, where they could take their own business?
So we are scaling a lot, actually, and we will be doubling our team size within the next few months. We've already made some offers, and we expect to bring on 2 to 3 more people by the end of 2017, and then to continue to grow from there. We're actually at a pivot point, and this is something that might be interesting for your listeners to think about. We're at a pivot point where we are needing more people to handle the work, but we are also close to generating enough revenue where we can comfortably say that we can bring those people on. So it's an interesting time where we have to do as much as we can to bring in the revenue, and soon we'll be at the point where we can bring in people. And because Mary and I are extremely senior in our experience, it'll be very helpful to bring in people who can assist with some of the more administrative tasks that can free us up to bring our high-value, high-revenue work to clients.
So is this more a hybrid? Is it an agency then? Or are you evolving into something else that talk to us a little bit about the different business models.
Sure. So we are certainly an agency, but we are also working horizontally in other industries. So we have stakes in and partnerships with retail establishments, distribution companies, manufacturing facilities, and other things, and especially investment funds, where our goal is that we can take a fantastic plant-based product that we think can change the world, invest in it, brand it, market, launch it, sell it, distribute it, etc. So we are horizontally integrating ourselves so that we can do that and make a huge difference for our clients.
Yeah. So tell me the best business advice you've ever received.
Oh, man. It's a great question. I think the best business advice I ever received was to know when something's not working and be willing to pivot. I changed my business model several times, from when I was a broker to doing executional marketing to doing strategic marketing. That's certainly been the most effective and the most rewarding, both in terms of impact and in terms of revenue. But knowing when it was time to stop and say, okay, it's okay. You learned a lot from this. You generated a lot of goodwill and maybe some fantastic relationships with clients. Now it's time to know what makes sense for your business. And that's been most important for me, has been knowing when it's time to change the model.
Our startups are obviously bootstrapping early on, and so they have this terrific idea. They're obviously have limited resources, so they're gonna be very creative and resourceful in terms of testing their product. And they come to you. Do you ever buy in to their idea? So in other words, in terms of cost structure, in terms of how they actually pay you, where you're kind of, there's some skin in the game for you in terms of their own success? Or is it a pure agency as opposed to them treating you almost like a broker model where they're paying you for the success of their own product in getting into the stores and then obviously ultimate revenue?
So because we don't do sales, we're not working on commissions. However, there are times on a case-by-case basis where we'll work with companies on an equity basis or on a cash equity split or something, where we'll look at respecting the fact that they have few revenues, or maybe on the other hand, that they don't want to give up any equity. We're very open to those discussions. We have to make some determinations based on our own cash flow, of course, but we're also establishing ourselves and building for long-term growth and value. So there are certainly times where we're interested and looking to do that, and we can be very flexible and creative in how we can partner with people based on their circumstances.
Talk to us a little bit about, for those who are not really very familiar with vegan. I mean, obviously some people eat steak, they love chicken and eggs and all of that. Talk to us a little bit about incorporating the vegan diet into our own everyday lives for those who haven't begun to do that and maybe want to start to try, whether it be for health reasons, because of their approach to animals, but just talk to the everyday person who can sort of incorporate vegan into their lives.
Sure. So I'm very happy to have been eating this way for the last 15 years, and I've been vegetarian for nearly 20 years. I made the decision to originally change my diet for reasons of concern for animals, but I'm extremely passionate about the incredible impact we can also have on the environment and on our own human health. I think the thing that was most inspiring to me about it was that I was looking to make a difference, and I cared about a lot of issues, from women's health and rights and peace and international affairs and all kinds of things. But what inspired me and empowered me about this work is that by making a single choice oneself, even if it's just for one day, if I choose not to eat a hamburger and to eat a veggie burger for lunch today, I'm saving an animal's life, I'm reducing my cholesterol and my risk of cancer, diabetes, and heart disease, and I'm reducing the amount of greenhouse gases in the world significantly. And every single time I make that choice with my fork and my dollar in the supermarket, I can have a tremendous impact without needing to convince the president not to go to war in Iraq or to, try to get all men to not abuse women. Like there are certain things that we can't do exclusively on our own, but this is one where we are so empowered, and it's so fun. There are amazing foods out there. You can explore all the new options, and that's why I love it so much.
So how do you know the true message to give each person that you're coming across? Because some people are doing it for health reasons, other people aren't doing it because of some of these other things. And so how do you sort of finesse it that you don't turn other people off that are not into it because of political reasons or because of cruelty to animals, even if they do love animals? How do you sell it, even though you're not a sales organization per se?
Sure. So, like I said, I did come from the education and advocacy world, but the biggest reason I'm doing what I'm doing now is because I realize that the products that we represent speak for themselves. They're delicious, they're beautiful, they're affordable, they're healthy, and they're easy to find. And that's what excites me, is that I can say to somebody, you don't have to change your identity. You don't have to decide that you're never going to eat something again. Here's a delicious, awesome product. Put it in your mouth, try it out. What do you think? Wouldn't it be great to have this for dinner on Thursday? Maybe you'll have it for dinner once a week. That's the conversation where we can meet people where they're at, not make them feel judged, and let them know that we are supporting them with awesome options to make choices in a very low-stress way that can be good for them in the world. And there's no pressure or expectations around it.
Yeah, and I think that when you want to try to sort of bring this to the masses and obviously make it catch on more, I think that's a populist way of doing it. So in terms of the marketing research in this particular space, how big is the market? And, people are always worried about coming up with good ideas in this particular space. So talk to us a little bit about, the opportunities for others, whether it be your own business or other people listening, in terms of coming up with an idea in this particular vegan niche.
Absolutely. So the space is booming, and you asked about the numbers. The biggest reason it's booming, it's not because of people who are going exclusively vegetarian or vegan. That number is growing. But the biggest growth is in people who are looking to incorporate this into their lives in a small way, which is fantastic. So in 2013, Mintel, which is a large market research organization, did a very large study, and they found that between 1% and 2% of the population is vegan, meaning eating no animal products of any kind. Between 5% and 7% of the population is vegetarian, so no meat, fish, or poultry. And then 16.7% of the population, over 1 in 6 people in the country, are eating vegetarian for more than half their meals. They're what we call flexitarians. And that's where the real economic opportunity is, and it's also where the real impact is. If I'm selling a veggie burger to a vegan, I'm not making much of a difference. But if I'm selling one to somebody who eats meat, I'm changing the world. So in addition to that extremely large number, over 40% of Americans in that study said that they were aiming to reduce their meat, dairy, and egg intake significantly over the next year. So the opportunity is huge. We find that in the marketplace every day. The demand for these products is skyrocketing. Just to give you an idea, in the last few years, we've had clients who have been invested in by Li Ka-shing, the wealthiest man in Asia, by Jerry Yang, by Bill Gates, by the folks from Twitter who started the Obvious Corporation and Obvious Ventures. Some of the richest and most strategic investors in the world are recognizing that this is the time to get into this space because we just don't have the stability and the resources to continue farming animals the way we have, and producing healthy plant-based proteins to feed the masses is really the only way we can go forward. That's why they're betting big on this. And you're seeing it from the big meat companies too. Tyson has invested in a vegan meat company. They have started a several $100 million fund to continue that growth. And the CEO himself has said, we're not hedging. This is the future, and we're getting in front of it. So when we see leaders like the head of Tyson saying that they need to pivot away from meat and towards plant proteins, there's no question that this space is exploding.
So I kind of look at this as a food business strategist. So whether someone's interested in vegan or some other aspect of the food chain, what do you tell them in terms of resources, things that they can sort of leverage and use just to get started every day to begin?
Yeah, I think that it's extremely important that we recognize that there are so many different ways to go to market. And when I mentioned that $250,000 figure, that's an insane amount of money. But that's related to how people go to market if they are going to try to compete with the biggest brands in the world on the shelves of supermarkets where there are 60,000 different products in the same store. And there are so many different ways to sell to consumers. So you can have a restaurant, you can sell at stores, you can sell online, you can sell at farmers markets. Each of these models has different costs and different opportunities for revenue. And what I'd say is the more closely you interact with the consumer and the more directly you interact with them, such as selling at a farmer's market or something of that nature, the higher your profit will be, but the less scalable the business is. So if you would like to have a really big impact on a few people, which is certainly admirable, and you can do that through a restaurant or through catering or through farmers markets, you can do that, and you can make a very healthy margin, and you can have a very sustainable, happy business. If you want to be the next Coca-Cola of healthy food, then you're going to have to invest and go and make sure that you are selling through additional channels, such as through retail stores, so that you can reach a much broader audience. But the reason you're going to need so much money is because there's so many middlemen. You have to get onto the shelves. You have to get distributed there. You have to get sold into the store, etc. So you're not just convincing the consumer, you're convincing all the trade partners too. So I think the biggest thing to realize is that there are many ways to make an impact, and one should decide what their goal is, if they want to be the next Coca-Cola or if they just want to have that personal connection where they can change a few people's lives.
Yeah, very good. When looking at resources, though, in terms of, testing their own idea before obviously, going into the market, going to a farmer's market or doing those one-on-one type of things is really an effective way to test their idea. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. And there are a lot of resources for people to do these things on a small scale, whether it's testing by selling in locally there, sharing with friends and family. There are also in all major cities in the country now food incubator kitchens where rather than producing your brownies at home and trying to sell them illegally because of health code violations, you can rent either for a few hours, for a day, for a month, a small shared kitchen where you can produce your product legally and with the expertise and efficiencies of the teams there so that you can produce it and get it out there. That's do you have a few
ideas in terms of, are there commercial, like almost franchisees where, they allow people to come in and do this for a fee or a flat fee per month?
Yes. So in New York City, where I live, there are several. You can go to Brooklyn Food Works, the Organic Foods Incubator, the Entrepreneur Space, Hannah Kitchen, Hot Bread Kitchen. There are a number of them. In LA, there's Local Food Lab. They're really everywhere, and they're fantastic places because not only do you have the kitchen space at a low-cost rent, because it's not constant. You also have workshops and educational sessions they're putting on, and they can teach you from their own experiences, and you're networked. It's like a co-working space where you can speak to other entrepreneurs who are facing the same challenges. So it's a really great opportunity to get involved and get to know what it's like to start such a business.
That's great, and we'll have links to all of those resources David just mentioned. Our fast pitch, mitchellchadro.com/books for books, audio books, guest recommendations, and the books that I read to start up each day. Sponsors our fast pitch, my book club recommendations, back at mitchellchadro.com/books. To see more of my recommendations and recommendations of our guests, just go to mitchellchadro.com/books. It's your number one resource for book reviews and recommendations. So we read a lot of books that motivate us, that inspire us. Can you recommend a book for everybody in the audience?
Made to Stick and The E-Myth.
Okay. As far as productivity, is there an app that helps you in business, family, or life that you can recommend?
Insightly.
Our wrap-up round, mitchellchadro.com/photos for all your graphic design needs. In our wrap-up, we want to have our audience take away 3 things that you feel are the most important ideas that you can provide to them. 1.
So first, research everything about the industry you want to go into. When I started my business, I did 115 informational interviews in 1 year to meet everybody throughout the food business and map out my path to success. 2, as I mentioned before, be ready to fail, take the bull by the horns, and pivot when needed.
And 3,
really know your margins, because you're always going to have expenses you don't expect, and be ready to have to account for those and to have to change your rates as you find them out.
And how's everybody going to stay in contact with you, David?
So I can be reached at david@plantbasedsolutions.com, and our website, plantbasedsolutions.com. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and we look forward to hearing from everybody.
Is there anything imparting that you'd like to let the audience know that you think that we haven't talked about today?
Yeah. The amazing thing about the opportunities today in the world is that young people and people in general are looking to make impact. And for so long, we assumed that going into the career space, one could either make impact or make money. There's a new movement called effective altruism. I'm a proud practitioner, and I really believe that there are creative ways and non-traditional ways to make both impact and money, and sometimes they're even more effective than going to do the traditional charity work we'd think of. So I encourage people who want to make a difference and be successful in their careers to go to websites like the Center for Effective Altruism or 80,000 Hours, and learning about how they can combine their passions with their needs to survive.
David, awesome. Thank you so much for everything. Thoroughly enjoyed it, and I know the audience will as well. And we're really looking forward to hearing more about your success in the future. You'll come back and you'll let us know.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, take care now. Bye-bye. In closing, let me ask for my listeners' help. First, please subscribe to my email list at mitchellchadro.com/signup. You will get all the full interview transcripts, my ebook, 30 Tools to Start Up, where I talk about these free resources in show 006. You'll get the startup checklist, education and training materials, and other resources just by signing up at mitchellchadro.com/signup. Listen up, trusted friends. It's your business, it's your family, it's your life. Go out and live it. Back at mitchellchadro.com/signup, help me boost the rankings of the Listen Up Show, the Startup Entrepreneur Podcast, by providing a well-written review in iTunes. mitchellchadro.com/iTunes. It helps other people find the show. If you actually need instructions on how to do this, you can find that back at mitchellchadro.com/signup. Thank you so much for subscribing to my email list and providing a written review on iTunes. Until next time.